Greetings, Night Nation. Welcome back into Suns Today, your home for the Summer Suns content. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you check out what we're doing here. Subscribe to everything that we have, and we will keep you entertained throughout the entire summer. My name is Adam Eaton, and as always, the one, the only, Trace Choco is joining me again. Trace, my friend, how are you?
Doing good, Adam. Good to see you again. Didn't we just see one another in Frisco, Texas? It seemed just a few days ago. Good to see you.
Like I just saw you and a cast of thousands meandering around Frisco, Texas, and the Dallas Cowboys practice facility, which is a beautiful facility, by the way. Probably nicer than a lot of actual stadiums. But we'll get to all that coming up here. We also will tell you what grinds our gears. We have a mailbag. Maybe Trace has what's in the box. I don't know if he's prepared that. I think he has. We'll find all that out later on. But before we get started, Trace, we always do this. One big thing. Just brought to you by our friends at Werner, Hoffman, Gregg, and Garcia. Check them out at wernerhoffman.com. Trace, we were in Frisco, Texas. Why were we in Frisco, Texas? Great question. The rest of the Big 12 convoy was also there. It was Big 12 Media Days, a two-day event where all 16 teams, players, coaches, administrators take the podium, take the dais, walk the field, and gives us opportunities to ask a bunch of questions and hear from all the respective teams. And themes always emerge, Trace. There's always conversations, and obviously we're there trying to pick out information related to UCF. And boy, did we get a doozy. Late Tuesday into Wednesday, Trace, where a tweet was penned by one Chris Vanini of The Athletic, quoting Scott Frost as saying, "Don't take the wrong job," which Vanini said was in reference to Scott's tenure at Nebraska. Trace, that blew up. Obviously, people were talking all over the place. As we got back there on Wednesday morning, it was still a story. It was still something people were talking about. So what say you about these Frost comments, the 5 words heard around the internet?
Was there anything really new there? That's my initial reaction. And that tells you perhaps how devoid of real news Big 12 football media days were. Not that we didn't enjoy ourselves, not that we didn't have plenty of great interviews that you can find right now on the Suns YouTube channel. We had all of that and more, but I'm not sure the event made news. And so that one blew up a little bit. I think it crystallizes that UCF's biggest rival may be Nebraska. That's the pairing that we need to see. Those fans jumped all over it. And I do think the one thing, though, is that the storyline to watch, maybe this coming season, maybe beyond, for Scott Frost is, can he duplicate that magic of 16 into 17 season, right? That's one storyline. And then the challenges that he had coaching Nebraska, not had a winning season coaching since 2017. And both of those things, I think, hang over him. He doesn't want to be compared to the 2017 team. He wants to make a fresh start here in Orlando, coaching UCF. But he can't get away from the Nebraska thing. And that just bubbled that up again. Fallout, though, I don't think there is any. I think the Nebraska fans got riled up, but they're watching for content like this all day long because, as we like to say, what else is there to do but talk Nebraska football 24/7, 365?
It is talking season, Trace. I think this is a big nothing burger. You have, I think, seen or been a part of or witnessed every Scott Frost press availability since he's returned to UCF. And he said some form of this in many different ways throughout that entire time. Now, he didn't say these 5 words in the same string at the same time, and I think that's what got people's eyeballs. But he said something of this fashion the entire time. Right? His first presser, right? When you're climbing the ladder of success, they forget to tell you to stop when you're happy, right? There were clearly signs that this was how this was. But look, here's the other thing. Think about this back from the UCF perspective, right? In 2017, 2018, we were all up in arms, right? The recruiting database, the red checkered shirt. Maybe it's just possible. Checkered shirt. Scott Frost is a bad breaker-upper, right? Just isn't somebody who leaves a situation in a way that we all would. And to each their own and how that works out. I do think what's interesting about this, and I really want to understand what Nebraska fans were really upset about and kind of riled up about. And there was a Reddit thread or something I read where Nebraska fans kind of talked about it. And the genesis I got, Trace, which is kind of what you just said, is Scott, in their view, has never taken any accountability for what went wrong at Nebraska. He's never said, hey, I messed up this, I messed up that, I messed up this. And that's what they want to hear. I'm not saying Scott owes them that, but I do think it's an interesting question around what has he learned? How has he grown since that experience? He hasn't given us much by way of that other than to say, you go through things, you live, you learn, you get better, you do all these things, right? But I do think as he gets to the field now, Are there differences in how he coaches? Are there differences in how he puts together staffs and teams? Because I do think that's a real thing that's over his head right now until he proves it on the field. It was not a great, successful tenure at Nebraska. What has he learned, and will that stuff be replicated? I think that is something that he actually has to answer, rather than answering if he took the wrong or right job some point in time 8 years ago.
And we may not learn that answer during the 2025 season, though I think one statistic we will look for is how UCF fares in one-score games, because Scott did not do well in Nebraska in those situations.
Well, Scott is part of this new regime, Trace, that includes Alex Grinch, defensive coordinator, and a slew of players that we had a chance to talk to on Big 12 Media Week. And there was a theme that continued to emerge, Trace, and that's the theme of a giant chip squarely on the shoulders of everybody at Night Nation, everyone in UCF. Trace, do you buy in to this chip on the shoulder mentality? One, do you think it's real, right? Because everyone will use something to motivate themselves, right? There are contrived slights all around us that athletes and competitors use to motivate and drive them. Do you think there's something to this chip on the shoulder mentality UCF has? And do you think it's actually something that can be used for the greater good as we march into the 25 season?
I hope so. UCF needs to find that little engine that UCF against the world that has been missing for a while. So I certainly hope so. But, you heard from 16 teams and players and coaches. They all sounded the same. They all had something to prove. They all had some version of a chip on their shoulder, even if they were Arizona State coming back after great success a season ago. So it is a motivating thing. However, when you look at the turnover on the roster, binding this team coming together as a unit, as one, right? You remember Frost back in his first tenure at UCF doing it for the guy on your left and the guy on your right. If they refine that, you said it at the outset, it's talking season. It's July. Let's see what happens on Big 12 play on the road in Manhattan, Kansas in late September. Let's see if the chip on the shoulder and the Knights against the world can work for Scott Frost in his first season back at UCF in Big 12 play, where the Knights have struggled, especially in road games. Let's see if that chip on the shoulder mentality translates on the field. As we've said about the roster, we'll say it about this statement. We don't know, and we're going to have to see how it plays out.
I think it's real in the sense. I think that the players and coaches feel that, right? Miles Montgomery, Trace, who we all expect to be one of the leaders of this team, probably someone who's going to get a ton of carries, told me, hey, I still have to prove to people that I'm the best running back they've ever seen. We talked to defensive players. Kelly Lawson talked about they love being counted out. They love the fact that people aren't giving them a lot of credit right now, that they're using that as motivation. So I do think it's real that they have the chip on the shoulder. Now, is that chip on the shoulder going to translate to one extra yard of a carry? It's going to translate to, 1 third down stop. I think that's the thing you don't know, right? Frost talked a lot about he likes the talent on this team, but he's also very quick to say that they're inexperienced. And so you can have all the talent in the world, but do you not make mental mistakes? Do you get off the field on third down? Do you not turn the football over? Those are things he said, frankly, he doesn't yet know about this team yet because they haven't really been through it. So I love the chip. I love the fact that we're now back to the underdog mentality that feels like what UCF's kind of been built off of, but that doesn't necessarily equal wins just yet. Although to your point, I really hope this team will use that motivation to go that extra yard, to gain that extra inch on third and short, right? To make a tackle on second and long, to make it even harder for the offense, right? I really hope those things come true, but no one really knows yet until we get people on the field.
You've had 7-8 minutes in conversation with him. That's the first time you've had to speak with him. I know there's the football cliches and the coach speak, but did you sense some sincerity there in him saying, I really don't know? We threw a lot of the playbook, most of it, right, at them during spring. There's been other pieces that have moved in and out since then, right, through the portal and guys, register, enrolling for classes, and they'll be on the field here for preseason camp in just a couple of weeks. Do you sense that's accurate, though, that he really doesn't know and that there's a lot more to discover in the couple of weeks leading up to that home opener once camp opens?
Yeah, I take him at his word on that, Trace, largely because, I have no reason not to, but largely because 70-plus new players. Like, I still think there's a ton.
That number gets bigger every time I hear it.
I think 70 sounds better than 60, so I've been doing with the 70 at this point. But I think it's almost impossible to get 70 people on the same page in a short amount of time if you're really good about where they all are. So I think just logistically, that makes a ton of sense. Again, I think, he told me, I was talking to some other folks in the national media who had some one-on-one availability with Scott as well. And I had one reporter tell me that quietly, Scott said, we have a lot of talent on this team. We're going to surprise people with our talent. But again, talent is one thing, but can you get off the field in third down? Can you not jump off sides on third and short, right? Can you not turn the football over? Not have a punt block on special teams. I think those are the things he doesn't know about. I do think he's sincere in that because I don't think he's seen his team in live action yet. So I take him at his word when he says, I don't quite yet know what I have here because we haven't really ever been tested outside of the 14, I guess, because they canceled one, spring practices that UCF had here the last couple of months.
Yeah, they got Jacksonville State in that home opener, which is no slouch, right? They've had success. Rich Rodriguez moving on to West Virginia, but had success with him. That's not a tee-up game, right? That's not just a glorified exhibition game. They could be challenged in that one, and maybe that's good for UCF, right? Maybe a big blowout win isn't as helpful as being challenged and having a fight for a victory in that first week.
I agree with you. Like, I think we often laud softball coach Cindy Ball Malone for scheduling tough early on and getting to understand the makeup of her team. And I do think there's some credence in doing that, right? I think the fan base will flip out if it's a 31-28 UCF win over Jacksonville State. Now, that may be the right thing for the team because they need to kind of get that experience. But I think people are going to see that score if it's that close, and they're going to freak out. Jacksonville State going through some turnover as well, like most. Is there any team who's not going through turnover, I guess, athletics right now? Going through turnover with a new coach, and obviously some folks have left after Rich Rodriguez left. But yeah, I mean, I think we're all doing that thing where you go down the schedule and you do the W's and the L's, and I think we're all putting the W next to Jacksonville State, and I think maybe we can still feel good about that. But this may not be a pushover, and I don't think that's a bad thing. As long as we look like we know what we're doing. Now, if we're fumbling the ball over the place and kicking it out of bounds and throwing off helmets, then maybe there's cause for concern. But I do think getting tested early may be something that Scott Frost wants this team to do and wants to see how they kind of come out of that and how they survive that. Now, the rest of us, we may need to take some nitroglycerin pills because there's going to be a major freak out if things get closer, Trace. But things may be better for UCF. If perhaps phone call to one Jake Retzlaff, who formerly a BYU quarterback, has now not entered the portal, Trace. He just de-enrolled from BYU, left school, and is just going to go enroll wherever he wants and going to go play football.
Which is nice, but how does he just get to play?
Transfer portal, don't even worry about all that. Jake Retzlaff going to walk into a campus someplace and want to be their quarterback. CBS Sports had an article out where they listed some possible locations, Trace, and you were quick to point out on social media, UCF, ? Was listed as a possibility. Trace, can I interest you in a slightly used Jake Retzlaff as your starting quarterback?
This will get teed up as a something you use as a sounder. Oh, hell yeah.
I do the Frost thing where I'm going to write the quote down and tweet it out to people.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, let's have a bake sale and a lemonade stand to raise the money needed to bring in Jake Retzlaff. Yes, that would be an experienced quarterback coming in for the Knights, right? UCF's quarterbacks listed amongst the least desirable in the Big 12. There are a lot of signal callers back, experienced quarterbacks in the Big 12. That's going to be a difference maker throughout the season for UCF. We're asking a lot of Taven Jackson, Jakari Brown, Cam Fancher to step up and be better than some of the best in the league. So I would take a Retzlaff transfer. I don't think it's realistic in any sense, but I'd certainly line up for it.
Yeah, I'm going to say the exact. I do not think this is in the cards. I think there's probably going to be much greater suitors from a financial perspective that'll be out there for Jake to consider. What I would take the experience. I mean, he started every game for BYU last year. 20 touchdown passes, ran for over 400 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he clearly can play, right? And that's more than what we've seen of the current crop of quarterbacks. The one caveat you have here is just Frost has talked a lot about team chemistry. Building chemistry, building trust, loving each other, right and left, unless this other guy's available, in which case we love him too coming over here. So I do wonder what that would do to team chemistry. A lot of people are going to do the Mike Hughes thing, Trace, where they're going to say Mike Hughes walked into campus on a Tuesday and was the starting quarterback on the Saturday. And I get all that, but it's not quarterback. It was
not the same thing.
It's a little bit easier to maybe make that transition. So should Jake give us a call and say, hey, I'd love to come down and see how things are in Orlando, I wouldn't be mad at UCF kicking the tires. Do I think it's realistic? Probably not. But again, I think there's a bit of a caveat around, do you really want to mess with whatever the brotherhood you're building is right now? It's tough to say that because I don't know how good that is, right? That if that brotherhood gets me to 2-10, bring in whoever the heck you want. If that brotherhood gets me to 10-2, we're good without you, Jake. So right now, I would take his experience, but I do think there's a tad of a risk in thinking about doing something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's very realistic, but it is talking season coming out of Big 12 media days, and that's the sort of thing you talk about. He was certainly a storyline there, and BYU ducked that for the most part, their head coach. So speaking of head coaches, I want to call an audible on you. I was looking something up, and I decided to throw a little trivia in.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. Can we do a little friendly wager here?
Sure.
If the question is, can you name all of the people that have been a head coach of UCF football since inception? Do you know how many that is?
Well, I think I did the math on that. Are we counting interims?
Yes.
If we're counting interims, and we're talking like 13?
13 coaches, 12 guys.
Right. Okay. So okay, yes. So I have to name all of them?
And I'll buy you lunch if you can name them all. Gosh. And if you name them in order, a good dinner. I'll throw in a good dinner.
Which order? Can I go back? Can I go?
You got to go from first coach to current coach. If you get them in order, a really good dinner.
Man, I know we got Lou Saban to kick this thing off.
Well, that's not your first coach, so you're already out of the dinner. You're already out of dinner, so you're hanging on to lunch now.
I'm trying to go. I'm on the line. I don't think I can do this in order. Let me start. We got Frost, Malzahn, Heupel, Frost, O'Leary.
Yes.
Well, this is where it gets tricky because we have a Danny Barrett in there.
He's in there.
Prior to
0-4, you remember the Barrett era?
Who doesn't? We have an Alan Gooch interim in there someplace.
0-2, interim, not the title you want.
Kruzek, Gene McDowell.
Yes. And then you're going to struggle.
How many are left? How many did I just name?
You got 4 left.
Lou Saban, I already mentioned.
3 left. There's an obvious one and 2 struggles.
Why am I blanking on an obvious one here?
Obvious one. First head coach.
Why am I blanking on this guy's name? I met him recently. He was right there.
Yes.
He was little man. Was right there.
Smaller than he used to be.
Smaller than he used to be. And his name is. Well, you're gonna have to give me this one. What do you got?
He'd fit into a popular singing group. He'd be a popular musician right now with that last name.
Be a popular musician with his last name. This is dreadful. Give me
none of these guys are his brothers.
Oh, he's a Jonas guy. Yes.
Jonas. Yeah. Don Jonas, first head coach.
There's one guy who was only there for a season, like the 82 season, the guy who went 0 in 82.
And this is one fascinates me because I've never read a thing about him.
I don't know his name. I know he went 0 in 82. That's all I got for you.
Yeah, he was 0-10.
His name is?
Sammy Weir.
Okay.
And got one more after Lou Saban.
I got nothing.
And I know nothing about this guy either.
Yeah,
and if you know something about Sammy Weir or this guy, message us.
Find us, yes.
I've never read anything. I just think for a program that isn't very old, you should know something about coaches that, Jerry Anderson.
Yeah, that one. See, I'm mad about the Jonas. I should have known that one.
Was 1-3. Seems in an interim capacity, right?
That would seem to be the case. Well, I'm glad
he filled in for Lou Saban.
Well, I'm glad we did that now because now I have something new that will.
That really grinds my gears.
Grinds my gears straight. Brought to you by our good friends at Florida Football Prep. By the way, if you need any gear for the season, check them out at floridafootballprep.com. Trace, now you've grinded my gear. This is all payback for the athletic article. I know this is what this is, but you can continue on, Trace. What is it that you need to get off your chest? What's grinding your gears currently?
We're big fans of Brett Yormark, right?
Yeah,
clean cut guy. Comes up with a lot of creative ideas.
Where's a
professional?
Suit? Yeah.
Oh, he does. Good dresser, right?
Great suit wear, yeah.
But that Greg Sankey, boy, he's a big windbag. I mean, he does have all the cards, right? He's got the most powerful league right there with the Big Ten. But boy, that guy's pompous. Pompous windbag. He grinds my gears. And it's there's some jealousy there. And if UCF was in the SEC, he'd be my commissioner. I'd love him for doubling down on the things that he says. But he just carries himself. He knows the power that he has to control the direction of college athletics, and it's just annoying.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Trace. I will say he was on the dais today here at I guess it was Monday, Tuesday for SEC Media Day, and he is beyond annoying, Trace. I'm going to give him 2. I don't love it, ace, because I agree with the sentiment. I do think he he's a bit pompous and he's a bit arrogant about his conference. But again, if that was our commissioner, we'd want the same.
Oh yeah, love it.
And so he's also got a power hand that he can play a little bit here. And so I don't fault him for doing that. I don't love it because he's not somebody that I can attach myself to. But I do think from an outside perspective, he does come across extremely arrogant and as somebody who's kind of tone deaf to everything outside of his little conference. But unfortunately, his little conference. So I'm going to go with two O'Learys on the index here. I don't love it, Ace. I don't love Ace. You know what? For me, though, Trace.
That really grinds my gears.
I can't remember if I did this one or not already. So if I did.
You're recycling?
Yeah, I may be recycling.
Grind my gears?
It really grinds my gears, Trace. We were sitting in Dallas. And coach after coach comes up to this big, beautiful stage, this big, beautiful stadium, and they're asked questions. And, undoubtedly, everyone's asked about the state of college athletics, NIL, and where we are, and ref share. And all of them have, hey, it's the Wild West. I don't know the rules. People are doing other stuff. And there's a lot of other blah, blah, blah. Yet nobody names names, Trace. Can we just name? Can we just, if
Texas Tech, I'll name a name.
And that's what's funny about all this is Texas Tech is in the room for all of these, right? Joe McGuire,
did he say it?
I don't believe so. I don't think he did. But name names. I mean, Dion was on the podium on the Wednesday, and he was talking about Joey. Give me
Dion
that
named names a little bit. He said he'd want Texas Tech's money.
Yeah, he just said he want their money, but. Just if there are schools out there, particularly in your own conference mates, who again these events are all about synergy, right? They're all about we're the Big 12, and here's what we're going to do collectively. And every coach give us the whole line of anybody can win this league, and every week you go into someone's place, you never know if you. And then we're all together there, and then we're all like, yeah, the rules are just kind of murky. I don't know what's going on, but that's all I got to say about that. We everybody know. Let's just say some names, especially if it's inside of your own conference. If it's somebody in your own family. I think you're well within your right to call them out. So that's what
really grinds
my gears, Trace, is. If we're talking about Texas Tech, let's just say it. If we're talking about BYU, let's just say it. If we're talking about UCF, which we're not, by the way, but if we were, let's just say that too, Trace. That is what grinds my gears.
I like it. I don't love it. Ace. Two O'Learys there. But I agree.
No chance that's ever happening, right?
No, you know what, though? If this league wants some natural rivalries, having a head coach of the dais call out another program, that could help things.
I feel like Lane Kiffin would do that if we had somehow brought Lane Kiffin into the Big 12. We're not bringing Lane Kiffin, though. We are, however, bringing our good friend Brian W. Peterson in this particular segment. It is the Sons of UCF mailbag. Here's our first one, Trace. From our good friend blackgold_Ed. Do the Scott Frost viral comments help, hurt, or have no effect on UCF?
Ultimately, I don't think it has much of an effect, but I think it helps in the UCF against the world. So in that regard, I think it helps UCF. I think it'd be good to be hated a little bit instead of forgotten. So if it puts UCF into being a little villainous, then I'm fine with it.
I don't think it hurts. Again, because the only people who seem to be offended by this are people in Nebraska who really have nothing to do with what UCF's doing on a day-to-day basis anyway. We're not in the conference with them. We don't play them. They're not rivals of ours. So I don't think it really hurts. I actually kind of agree with you, Trace. I will say this. I did an interview with John Kurtz, who is a radio personality in Kansas City, which you can find on our YouTube channel. And he kind of talked about there's not a lot of storylines at the Big 12 Media Day. There wasn't a lot of last year was Dion and what's going to happen there. And this year was kind of muted. And for a brief moment in time, UCF was that storyline, although it wasn't maybe the most favorable thing. People were talking UCF, and UCF was part of the conversation. So I don't think it has any effect on any side. I think it maybe helped a little bit to throw some juice to UCF's way and keep UCF part of the conversation. But I don't think it has any negative impact one way or the other. Our good friend Patrick Nurse FTW, which player coach had the best swag? This could be UCF or otherwise, Trace.
Now, swag, what do we mean by this? It was swagger, the way they carried themselves?
I believe the kids are calling swag kind of like your outfit, your apparel, your accoutrement, if you will. Who had the best swag?
Patrick, I'm sorry. I didn't pay much attention to this.
Oh, geez.
I mean, from the UCF perspective, UCF was decked out.
They were decked
out. I thought they looked good. I thought the players looked good. Coach Frost was on vacation, didn't bring his A game. He said on shoes, with him as he was coming from vacation, so he wasn't fully, outfitted. Though he did tell you, I thought it was interesting that he thought he had the most shoes of any of the coaches in the Big 12. He was pretty confident about that.
I feel like we needed a follow-up to Dion to see if that's the case, because Dion famously having a Nike contract.
Hey, how about the special teams player for Colorado? They brought their
did bring the kicker.
I
believe his last name was Mata. He was there representing. Patrick, Nigel Kelly looked fantastic. He had an all-black suit on with gold lapels, and a gold bow tie. He pulled it off perfectly. I cannot pull that off. I asked Trace in the moment, hey, can you pull that off? He laughed at me as if to say he could not as well. I thought Nigel Kelly looked fantastic with the all-black suit with the gold lapels. I thought that was a really good look.
Do you own a bow tie?
I do not.
You've worn a bow tie.
I have. Have I? You're saying that as if I might have. I don't believe. Yeah, if you count it as a bow tie, then yes, I guess I have. I think the
clip on
a little situation there. I think it was like sewed into the shirt or something. I don't know. I have to look at the wedding photos there. At the aforementioned Bride David Peterson wants to know, what was the most insightful piece of information you learned at Big 12 Media Days?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well,
I take that back, Brian. We'll play it later on as we get closer to game week. But the 7 or 8 minutes I spent with the West Virginia mascot, the only one that can talk, that was the most insightful, interesting interview that I had. No disrespect to the others that I had conversations with.
Yeah, he did absolutely talk to a mascot for a period of time. Insightful is interesting. I think I really enjoyed. Honestly, I had an on the field conversation with Terry Mahajer, which we did not record. And, we recently spoke to Terry, so I didn't feel the need to record anything there. But he talked a lot about the way this team was kind of put together. And he made a comment that the staff, Scott Frost and his coaching staff, were interviewing players as much as players were interviewing to come to UCF. So I thought that was interesting that both he and Scott Frost feel really good about the process that they have to identify talent and bring folks onto this team. I thought that was telling. The other most insightful thing was talking to Chris Vanini the very next day after the tweet went viral and hearing kind of his version of events. So that was kind of cool to pick all that up in real time.
Do you feel you know enough now in that story that you can adequately weigh in? Was Scott Frost wronged?
My personal belief is yes. I believe the tweet sequence was a tad disingenuous by Chris Vanini. I'm not calling him a disingenuous person. I think he's a good reporter. I think he's someone who does a good job. I don't think he's someone who seeks out clickbait, but I do think this was a clickbait headline. This is in the Sons of UCF newsletter, by the way. You can go to our Twitter account. It's pinned up there at the top. Chris had a podcast he does called The Bunch Formation, where he breaks down what happened. And if you think about the tweets for a second, the first tweet was just simply the 5 words of, I don't take the wrong job. And he prefaces it with Scott Frost's comments on Nebraska. You go to the podcast and listen. What really happened was there was a first question where Vanini asked him to kind of take him back to leaving UCF and the emotions about leaving. And he gave a long, thoughtful answer where I think some of the quotes were, I got called to go to my alma mater. I didn't really want to do it, but it was the right thing to do at the right time, right? He got asked a follow-up that was, what have you learned since Nebraska? And according to Vanini, he said, I don't want to talk about Nebraska. So another follow-up came in and said, well, what have you learned since you've been at UCF? And Scott said, don't take the wrong job. So he answered a question that was framed to him under the context of UCF. He specifically said, I do not want to talk about Nebraska. Yet the quote that came out was Scott Frost comments on Nebraska. And so I do think the way it was framed was a bit disingenuous. If you look at the tweets, again, now I'm getting really inside baseball here, but you're here, so enjoy. The first tweet that Chris had comes out at 2:36 p.m. The 5 words, don't take the wrong job. From what I understood, I believe after that tweet came out, I think some folks had some conversation with him. At 2:58, he then threads the second tweet with the longer quote. So the sequence is small quote, long quote. And the way that it was described in the podcast, Chris said the long quote was first, followed by the small quote. So went out of order, took the context out of order, and the question wasn't the question that Chris kind of framed in his tweet. So do I think he was wronged on that one? I do. Now, do I also think he's got to be smarter than that and has to do maybe a better job around national media about saying certain things? I also do. But Trace, I'll point you to this for a second. we had an opportunity to have Scott Frost. There was 4 or 5 of us around a table talking to Scott Frost, and you asked him a really great question. It was a funny question that he responded back to. You said, "Coach, I always see you smiling around your players. You seem like you really, really love the players." And he kind of cracked a smile and joked and said, "Yeah, I kind of like them more than I like you guys." Right. And we all laughed. We got a chuckle. It was a funny moment. But in theory, you could have tweeted, "Scott Frost, I don't like the media." Right. Yeah. And that, generally speaking, would have been the context of what he said, although not what he meant. So I think there's an element of Frost that is quick. He's sarcastic. He's dry humored. And I think that's what happened there. I think he got caught saying the thing. And I think the reporters were looking for the thing, heard it, and went and ran with it. And I do think he said it. I think he has to own it, but I don't think it was the context that it was presented on the tweet.
Was it Rich Rodriguez? I asked for a soundbite on Coach Frost, and he said, was it him? I lose track now. Yeah. When he said, "I wish he were a crappy coach." Now, we will take that out of context later.
I do think that he got wronged, but I also think Scott has to be smarter than to give a quote like that. At Golden Knight _2, which coach was most insightful and refreshing to interview from the Big 12 media days?
It begins and ends with Willie Fritz. No. No. You can't be Coach Gundy of Oklahoma State. The minute and a half he spent explaining Scott Frost eating a cookie, I had no idea where he was going with that. It was good stuff. The aforementioned Coach Rodriguez, it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. Coach Frost has been away from UCF in just 2 seasons in Orlando for 8 years. It's been longer for Coach Rodriguez, and it's going to be interesting to see what he can do there. Can he go back in, which is an interesting storyline for the Big 12 this season, right? There aren't a lot of coaches that have gone back and that have succeeded. Now you have 2 in high-profile positions. Can they both succeed? They do get an opportunity to play one another.
I'm going to say the aforementioned Joey McGuire, who, again, in his smaller media scrum, was very forthcoming. He articulated that he recognized he was under pressure. There was a lot of pressure to win and win now, and he kind of understood that and leveraged that. He gave a great answer when I asked him about Coach Frost and their time together, a very detailed answer about that. So I do think Joey McGuire was upfront about that. And Trace, I'm going to say it, and it's probably going to get some flack here. Dion got on the stage, and he's a party man. He brings the quote, he brings the thing. And I don't know if this was on ESPN or not, Trace. I think it was, because Matt Berry was hosting a little panel about college athletics, and he was asking the questions. And to be fair to Matt, I think he was kind of tiptoeing around some questions around, like, what do you think needs to change? What needs to happen? And Dion was asked the question, and he said, "These guys don't want to say it because they're scared, but I'll say it. We need to have this." And he laid out a plan, right? And he looked at the rest of the coaches and said, "Y'all don't have to say anything. I got this." And he went on and he gave his answer, right? And so I do think that's refreshing. Does it come with a little bit of extra at times? Sure. But I do think he always gives you a quote. He gives you something. He talks about something, and he gives you something to think about. So I'm going to say Dion had some insightful commentary as related to the Big 12. I had a new question, I think, at Lot Tailgates. With Frost stressing UCF has talent, who will be blamed, Trace, if we don't produce in the field? Scott Frost or Terry Mohajir?
Terry Mohajir, because Terry Mohajir is going to get blamed for everything. Scott Frost gets a big pass on the season. There will be questions about whether he was the right hire if UCF struggles, and that will be directed at Terry.
You're not wrong. I think if you had to give an opinion poll of the fan base right now, who do you like more, Frost or Terry Mohajir? I think Frost would win that pretty handily.
Are you saying that should be a poll question?
I don't. Well, do we want to ever? I mean, if we don't ever want to talk to Terry again, we can run that one.
So you're confident. Well, what do you think the split is on that? If we did post that as a poll question,
which one do you like more?
Yeah. 80-20.
I was going to say 85-15. Favor of Frost. 85-15 in favor of Frost. I think the only way Frost gets some blame is specific pockets. I think he'll get blamed for some of the recruits that were brought in, and were they really up to the quote unquote P4 level. And I think the thing that he will probably get the most criticism from, if it transpires, is defense, because we all think Alex Grinch may not be the right fit. So if defense struggles, I can see Frost getting flack for hiring the guy who makes the defense struggle, that being Alex Grinch. At UCF _Zach, for either a positive reason or a negative one, which 25 UCF assistant or position coach do you think will not be on staff in 2026?
It's a coach. I forget which Frost interview, to be honest, but it may have been said to you in assembling his staff. Sean Clark, former Appalachian State head coach, who's the offensive line coach. He had success at Appalachian State. I think that's an underrated hire for Frost. I think Frost likes having a guy with head coaching experience that he can bounce things off of. I don't know Coach Clark's career aspirations, but it would not surprise me at all to see him jump for one season at UCF to a head coaching position somewhere.
That's a good one. That was second on my list. First on my list was the aforementioned Alex Grinch. UCF Zach's question here is positive or negative. If this UCF defense is good and they're better than people expect, I think that allows Grinch to kind of rehab a little bit. He's widely known in college football circles. There's going to be a school out there that maybe will take a second chance at him. This defense is dreadful. Perhaps Alex Grinch doesn't come back for year two. So I'm going to go with Grinch just because I think there's a possibility on either side that he could not be wearing black and gold come 2026. At Harlan 10530, can we see a list of each player's NIL amounts from UCF?
Boy, wouldn't that be nice?
No, you can't.
UCF is, of course, and other schools are going to say a lack of competitive, lose a competitive advantage there with revealing. But where is all this going? More lawsuits are coming. Mike Bianchi with a high-profile column in the Orlando Sentinel talking about publishing player salaries and making those public. At what point, in an era of class action lawsuits that may be coming our way, at what point do students say, why am I paying for these student athletes to make all sorts of money off of the athletics fee? And it was interesting as we were speaking to students, Andrew Cherko and Matthew Matthew, I always butcher his last name, by the way.
At least you didn't call him Kelly Larson. It's Matthew Turman.
Turman. Sorry, Matthew. They weren't really dialed into how much of their credit hours goes to the athletic department, which I thought was interesting, right? So if you're looking to make some more money from the athletics fee, maybe students just aren't paying much attention to it. But at some point, right, there's going to be more of these lawsuits. At what point are these employees? At what point is there collective bargaining? I mean, if it's going to follow this pro model, all of that seems to be down the pathway. I
think the answer is no, but he or she asked about NIL. So NIL is different than rev share. NIL has to go through.
I lumped it all together.
I know, but I think NIL has to go through the NIL Go clearinghouse with Deloitte. I have no idea if any of those records are ever made available or made public. For rev share, Trace, follow my logic here. UCF's a public institution, just like Florida, it's like Florida State. If you essentially now become sort of a 1099 contract employee of the university, which is what rev share is that discoverable in FOIA? Freedom of Information Act information. I don't know. I'm not asking.
Where is it crouched through? Is it athletics is a private entity, and they shield themselves from public records requests. So is that where they're going to bury those?
You never know. I think some enterprising young journo out there maybe has an opportunity to file a couple of FOIAs and see what happens. But you would think that there's something that has to be there. And again, I don't know if Deloitte has any recourse or any need to ever release what goes through their clearinghouse. At UCF Guy 1203 on Blue Sky mentions that Terry Mahadra said basketball tickets, the increase wasn't as much and was in line with other Big 12 teams. Other people say that their increases are way too much. 40 to 90% of people are saying this, I guess, Trace. What do we think? What do you think, I suppose? Are the basketball season ticket increases too much? And what is a reasonable increase considering the recent results and events?
Well, UCF wants to play big ball basketball, right, in the Big 12, and ticket prices have been low compared to their brethren in the Big 12 and other power conferences. So it seems like a big jump when you're mentioning these sort of increases, but that's what it's going to take to be competitive. And when you talk about the results, while the results may be disappointing to some, there are others that say UCF has exceeded expectations as it's transitioned to the Big 12. I think Terry Mahadra is just trying to bring costs in line, and I think that you can get away with it. Maybe you lose some of the casuals, but the diehards that make up your season ticket base will probably not go away. They've been there for years and years and years, and they will continue to be.
Yeah, look, as a fan, as someone who has season tickets at UCF sporting events, any increase is too much, right? I don't want to pay any more than I have to pay currently. So I'm fully with you, UCF guy. Like I never want to have to pay another cent more than what I'm currently paying. I don't think anybody ever does. Now, I think what Trey said though is relative to other Big 12 schools, UCF tickets were on the lower side. I understand the angst of saying we haven't really put a product on the court that we feel good about. The team turns over every year. Who are these guys? So I understand the optics and the timing don't seem right, but at some point these ticket prices were going to increase. Now, perhaps UCF could have done a bit of a step ladder program where there's a certain percentage they increase every couple of years versus maybe one lump sum. Perhaps there could have been better communication about that. But I do think at some point this is going to happen. It's going to happen in every sport that's out there. You're going to have to find ways to generate new revenue. We just talked about rev share. Rev share, it doesn't come from nowhere, right? We need additional revenue. I think, UCF's trying to find where that's at. But I can understand the angst of a fan who says, I pay X. I already paid X. I already paid X. Now I got to pay more. Team's not very good. I understand the angst, but I think that's just the confines of where we are in sports in 2025. Last one, Trace. At Two Letters, Two Words wants to know, how great is Andrew Cherico?
Who?
Andrew Cherico.
I love Andrew. Yeah, featured in The Athletic, Bruce Feldman with a nice column profiling Andrew's rise in the journalism space covering UCF. Very proud of Andrew. We know how hard he has worked. Those of you who follow the Sons of UCF know he is everywhere as the face for the Sons of UCF in men's basketball, football, baseball, and the like, and very proud of Andrew and know that we play a small part in it. It is him. We provide opportunity. It is him and his work ethic that will help him continue to succeed.
Yeah, I always get a tad uncomfortable when people ask us about Andrew because it's not about us. It's not about you and I. It's about Andrew, right? And we just happen to be the small little platform that has the ability to bring Andrew in and let him do his thing. And so I think we play such an infinitesimal role in this, right? So I'm always uncomfortable with that. I do think what's left out though, Trace, and I'm gonna give you some flowers here that people don't know behind the scenes. Everything you see Andrew what he's done, he's learned at the feet of Trace, right? He's learned from watching Trace. There are times these two were at the basketball arena till 12:31 in the morning, cutting sound and doing on cams and doing promos for stuff, and at the football stadium till late at night too. So I think a lot of what you see and what I've seen the growth in Andrew is a direct reflection of how much time Trace has dedicated to spend with him, to teach him, to to show him different things. That's a testament to both those guys, by the way, because I know Trace well enough to know he has a speech he gives all the interns and says, hey, if you want to do the work, I'm here to help you. The interns got to do the work, and Trace will be there to help you. Andrew did the work and was always committed to doing the work, always wanted to do the work. Hence, Trace was there by him to make sure he did everything he needed to do and taught him a ton along the way, too. So, again, but it's all Andrew. He does all this. He's the one who makes all this happen. And that we get to play any small, tiny part in this is just icing on the cake. I actually, I did talk to Bruce Feldman, spoiler alert. And one of the things I did tell him, Trace, that did not make the story, and I was really upset about this, is a quote I thought was going to be great. I said, we hired Andrew because we wanted help and we thought we could teach him. And turns out he helped us and taught us more than we could ever teach him. And I think that's the big thing I take away is we thought maybe we were the ones who were going to get to teach. And I think Andrew taught both of us more than we probably ever realized about what it takes to be determined and what it takes for someone to go after a goal and to make sure that they reach their dreams. So I think we owe Andrew a debt of gratitude for that.
Yeah, and obviously I am with him far more than you are, but you saw firsthand that there can be challenges, and he perseveres through those challenges as he did in Frisco, Texas during Big 12 Media Days. And something that you may not see as we laud Andrew is that he's helped our next crop of interns. He stays after late with them and helps them with scripts and gives them pointers and has proven to be a mentor to them as well. And he pays it forward every opportunity that he has.
And I'll give him credit, Tracy. You're in these events. I mean, we're on a giant field in Frisco, Texas, and every coach you can think of, all the media that you can think of, and Andrew has no fear. And he will approach anybody and ask a question, ask for time, ask for an interview. And so there are certainly media members who are a bit reticent at times to go approach somebody and ask a question or don't ask stuff in pressers. That's not Andrew. If Andrew shows up to the press conference, if Andrew has an opportunity to ask you a question, he's going to ask a question. And so, again, it's his drive, it's his grit, it's his determination. I think that's made him successful. And I can't wait to see how much more successful he'll be. Maybe he'll remember us, Trace. I don't know. Maybe 10 years from now, we can at least get him to say hi to us at an event or something. We'll have to say about that.
Lots of good questions, but you know what time it is now?
I can't wait for this.
What's in the box? There's a camera?
Who's it brought? Do you want to do the Yad read here?
Sponsored by Alumni Hall. Alumni Hall. You can find it on University Boulevard, right near the University of Central Florida's campus.
What's the address? 4100 North Alafaya Trail?
That's correct. No, is it Alafaya? One is Alafaya because they moved. They moved, right? They were on the university side. Now they're on the Alafaya. Did they move?
41. No, they're Bar Louie, and then they're on the Alafaya side.
I thought they were further down.
No, their storefront faces Alafaya Trail, 4100 North Alafaya Trail.
Well, in my era, we've learned more about the address.
Trace, there's like a month left until the season starts. You might need fresh gear. You might need new stuff, new hats. They had a great sale happening last week. They always have great stuff. You can find them online as well. Alumni Hall. Just search for UCF.
I made more questions than we may have shows. What do we do with the extra questions?
Great. Plus.
Okay, here we go. Here it is, right here.
Can't wait.
If you could listen to one band the rest of your life, which would it be?
Band? It's got to be a band.
Or musician?
Maybe a solo artist or so.
Could be. We'll open up the category.
Gosh almighty. One musical artist for the rest of my life. All right. Well, here's the problem. Everybody has different moods, right? Sometimes you want a little energy. Sometimes you want a little, little slow me down.
Find someone diverse then.
Situation. So you want someone who can do a little bit of everything. I don't like.
You're gonna say Pitbull, aren't you?
I don't like country music. Spoiler alert. Never.
You're gonna say Pitbull.
No, I'm not gonna say Pitbull. Dale. Not gonna say Pitbull. Trying to think of a band or a song or an artist that comes on every time and I can sing their song. You know, the first thing that came to mind. This is going to age me though, and I feel like this is going to be an old guy answer. And I certainly don't want to be an old guy answer.
Old head.
As I record this today, by the way, Trace, on the on a Monday evening, my daughter Aston turned 18 today. And so I know
happy birthday,
the proud parent of an actual adult, which should be illegal in many different ways. I'm going to go Aerosmith.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of their songs and they come on, I know them, I can sing them. I was thinking this may be a spoiler alert. Back in college, I was a big Eminem fan, loved Eminem, still enjoy a little Eminem in my life there, but he's often very angry. And so I feel like wake up in the morning and, I just don't know if I'm ready for that level of anger. The young kids today, I don't know if they'll have staying power. And so I need a bigger breadth of a catalog. So put me down for Aerosmith right now. I'm not committed to it though.
Not committed. On band, I'm going to go with Green Day. Love Green Day. And my current obsession is Dua Lipa. I can listen to any song of hers in whatever mood.
Matches that. Just reading for the articles. Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah, no, Dua Lipa is a fine musician.
Matches whatever mood I'm in.
Yeah, I see how that could work, and I see how this requires no additional follow-ups other than to tell you all we appreciate you once again for watching another episode of Sons Today. Make sure you subscribed on YouTube. Again, we have I think 70 subscribers to go, Trace, as of this recording, to get to 2,000. So we'd really like to get that goal in the next month. So help us out there. Find us on all the social media platforms at Sons of UCF. Check out our website, Brian Peterson, with an article up this past week on the Scott Frost presser as well at sonsofUCF.com. All of your support there is very much appreciated. Everybody out there, you have a fantastic week. Take care of yourselves and each other. And until we talk again, I am Adam Eaton. This is Trace Trelko. Go Knights.
Charge on.